For people who save the world on a regular basis, why is dating and marriage so tough?
The family dynamic in Fantastic Four was really complicated in the sense that Reed Richards and Sue Storm had a marriage. Traditionally, the idea is to keep a superhero away from that. And Umberto Eco has a very cool theory that anything that's sort of a major life moment, let's say, marriage, having a child, they lead the hero to what's known as final consumption, which is basically a pathway to death. But Lee rejected that model, and I think he wanted to have a greater verisimilitude to the actual world itself, and he wanted to explore relationships that weren't often explored in the comics, specifically marriage and the family.
I really thought of their personal situation before I even thought of what I would do with the story. I didn't know of any superhero situation where the girl was actually engaged to the hero. So that would be fun. Let them start out being engaged. They're in love. They want to get married.
That's why Fantastic Four is so incredibly original for the stuff that was being put out at the time. It's not just about this young bachelor hero who struggles through different romances and goes from girl to girl. It's about making a marriage work, making a family work. And that dynamic is truly unique.
There are some fans that are very adamant and, like the status quo, but I think a lot of people like to see a character make a change and grow. I guess when you do something like a wedding, it is a big deal because you don't see it every day in comics. So, they do tend to make a big deal out of it.
I absolutely believe Peter getting married to Mary Jane was one of the worst things that ever could have happened for the character. The basic concept of the character precludes him being overly happy for too long. And marriage to a supermodel who he absolutely loves and who absolutely loves him, so there's not even a tension there, is not really what makes that character work.
Of course, also you have this demographic in comics that is traditionally socially outcast and socially isolated. And comics for years have specifically targeted that demographic with a lot of representations. And if you're a sexually frustrated 16-year-old kid, you don't want to see Spider-Man having a perfect relationship. That's going to taunt you a little bit.
In one of my Spider-Man stories, I had Peter propose to Mary Jane back in the 1970s, and she turned it down. She turned him down because I wanted to end that concept. Unfortunately, it was brought back, and I think it's a major, major mistake.
It depends on where you are as a writer. But when I was writing Spider-Man, I was and still am very happily married. And so what I did was I just brought my own marriage to the table and to the characters. We have sitting downstairs in my house a Spider-Man page, which is a bit of dialogue between Peter and MJ, which came right out of my life in a conversation with my wife. But for someone else reading it might be, I'm not interested in this. I just want to see him go out and do this other stuff. Or can he have like 5 girlfriends, or what's the story? And I don't think it's worked as well for Superman. I wrote Superman for a short time and never felt that same sort of dynamic in the Clark-Lois thing as I did in the Peter and MJ thing.
Superman's relationship with Lois Lane is unrealistic. It's meant to be. That's the way it's supposed to work. Lois Lane loves the big muscular hero. She doesn't understand that the little wimpy guy with the glasses that she has no time for is actually the same person. That's not a portrait of a human relationship. That's a metaphor for the way that people relate. It works really well as something that drives stories. It's not meant to be realistic.
Now that she knows in the comics that they're one and the same, I think that's very interesting. I did like the tension of, the original Superman, Lois, Clark triangle. But as we move forward and evolve, we just can tell different kinds of stories now that he's in a relationship with Lois than what we could tell when he wasn't.
Peter Parker's wedding to Mary Jane Watson was the happiest day of his life. So much so that he needed a change of clothes and 2 covers to celebrate the blessed issue. Love and Rockets is a comic series by Jaime and Gilbert Hernandez. It's fiction, but it's not a fantasy superhero story. The men and women of Love and Rockets are very different from the folks of Metropolis or Gotham because they're more like people you and I know in real life.
Love and Rockets has created, for my money, the greatest love story to occur in literature in the last 30 years. Maggie and Hopi are these incredibly complex female characters. they're women and they're gay. So right there, they're unconventional for what's appearing in comics at the time. But there's a tremendous sense of humanity to them. They are extraordinarily flawed people. Their relationship is extraordinarily flawed, but there's genuine love between them.
Maggie started out as just a character that I wanted to put in any situation I wanted to. And then she evolved into this punk kid. Hobie came along more of a type of person I would see on the street. These tiny little girls running around with spiky hair. And Maggie needed a sidekick, you know. Needed the Betty and Veronica thing, you know, to bounce off each other.
Jaime does Hispanic characters in his sort of fictionalized Los Angeles or America, and dealing with the situations there, you know, as normal people would. And mine is in a sort of mythical, you know, South American country. So the work actually complements each other that way.
The two of them both follow a small group of characters over a long period of time, and they really understand how people relate to each other, what their longings are, how they act on those longings, how they act on those ideas, or how they don't act on them.
Gilbert came up with this theory that because our father died when we were very young, we saw life through our mom's eyes, being raised by the single mother who, you know, whenever something happened, we saw it through how she dealt with it. For me, it also goes back to when I was 13 or something. Gilbert started encouraging me to draw women, and I was like, I can't draw girls, you know. But as soon as I did, I just wanted to draw girls all the time, you know. I was a 13-year-old boy, right?
In mainstream comics, when they say a strong woman character, they mean a woman that can pick up a truck. When they talk about, you know, hopefully, when they talk about Love and Rockets, they're talking about strong women characters, meaning more dimensions to them, are strong in the sense of better written, hopefully.
Something early in me thought, well, if I'm going to do these characters, I got to make them human, or it's just another TNA thing. I don't know, that just seemed important to me for some reason, you know.
From sex and sexuality to dating and marriage, relationships to one-night stands. These are the books that take sex and gender issues head-on. This is Comics 101. Birds of Prey is a different kind of team book in the DC universe. Former Batgirl Barbara Gordon now serves as Oracle, information broker to superheroes, and anchor to a rotating cast that's included Black Canary, the Huntress, and Lady Blackhawk. The Pro is Garth Ennis and Amanda Connor's adults-only parody of mainstream superheroes, following the short-lived exploits of a superpowered prostitute. If you've got the money, honey, she's got the time, and will fight crime. Writer Alan Moore's self-described work of Pornography depicts the tales of sexual awakening shared between three literary characters, now grown up. Alice from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, and Peter Pan's Wendy. Lost Girls is a controversial, critically acclaimed work that took 16 years to complete. Mainstream superhero comics have often shied away from anything sexual. Sex seemed a tough subject for them to tackle. But as the comics audience got older and more diverse, so did the characters the comics portrayed.
I think for the most part, the homosexuality is treated as a very, very big issue. It's a defining element of their characters. And in any given scene, you're going to try to emphasize that they're gay. Now, this is good in one sense, because it opens discussion, and it makes it readily clear. You're not just glossing the issue over. But at the same time, you're kind of fetishizing this as the singular marker of the superhero's identity, which is limiting in a lot of ways, and it's making homosexuality a bigger issue than it really, really needs to be. When Frederick Wertham accused Batman of having homosexual fantasy, the creators of Batman went nuts. And they made every effort to make Batman as completely heterosexual as was humanly possible. They created this Bat nuclear family in order to emphasize how completely not gay either Batman or Robin was. North Star was a big, big step. Here you have a viable superhero, obviously he wasn't one of the most popular heroes in the Marvel Universe at the time, who comes forward as homosexual and is able to continue his superhero fighting ways.
I've often said that Northstar was gay from day 2, because he really wasn't gay when I first conceived the character. Alpha Flight was created just to be 5 or 6 characters who could survive a fight with the X-Men. And then when they got their own book, I suddenly had to find depth to these characters. And I had just recently read an article in Scientific American, this was radical thinking back then, it's hard to believe, that said that being gay isn't necessarily because your mom made you wear dresses when you were a kid. It's probably something genetic. And I said, well, gosh, if it's genetic, there should be gay superheroes. So I said, I've got my group here, I can do it here, who's it going to be? And it was kind of a process of elimination. And it came down to Northstar. And I said, okay, Northstar's gay. And of course, because of the comics code and the politics at Marvel at the time, we weren't able to say it in so many words, but I dropped so many hints that pretty much everybody knew that Northstar was gay. And over the years, I've had guys come up to me at conventions and say that, you know, they're gay, and Northstar being gay really helped them at that time of their life where they were having to deal with that. That's very, very gratifying.
We've seen since then more prominent superheroes identifying with homosexuality. The best example being Batwoman.
The reasoning behind Batwoman, we wanted to introduce a strong female lead to the Bat family. We wanted to diversify the Bat family. And we wanted to show a character in a strong, positive light as well. And when we introduced Batwoman as a lesbian, the first thing we did is to show her as a superhero. So the only place we ever said that she was lesbian is when we described her. And when we presented her, you never got that feel, you never got that tone from any of the stories that we told. First of all, because we wanted to establish her as a hero first. And who she is and how she interacts with other characters is something that's revealed in her backstory, just like we reveal anything else. Just like, you know, Superman is an alien. As part of his story, the fact that he comes from another planet is key to who Superman is. The fact that Batwoman is gay is going to be key to who she is and the choices she makes and the problems she faces and the problems that she tries to overcome. It's all going to be key to who she is. And it gives her a point of view, a personality, a point of difference that is different from Bruce Wayne's Batman or Dick Grayson's Nightwing or Tim Drake's Robin. And it allows to expand the family in a much better way.
Originally, Batwoman was created to emphasize how not gay Batman is. So to bring her back as a homosexual character, I think really shows how far the genre has come.
Sex and relationships are part of all fiction. Comic books are no exception. Some of it is incredibly real, and some is, well, the work of very active imaginations.